Now, the internet's been buzzing for the last few days with a lot of wild imaginings about what might be happening to Affinity Photo. Now, I can totally understand the reasons that people are worried. I think that our suspicion of corporate shenanigans has been accentuated by corporates doing shenaniganing. It's what corporates do, and the acquisition of Affinity Photo, or the acquisition of Affinity or Serif as they were called by Canva last year has caused people to worry that Affinity Photo will be subsumed into Canva, and that Affinity Photo as we know it and love it is gone forever. What I want to do with this video is to address the concerns that people have made, both in the forums and to me, and to shed some light on what has actually happened and how we might expect things to turn out moving forwards. Affinity Photo was much loved in the photographic community. I can only speak really for Affinity Photo because I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not really a content creator as such, so I don't really have very much experience of Canva either. But there was a lot of trepidation when Serif was taken over or merged with Canva. And the reason for the trepidation was simply that Canva have a subscription model, which is something that Serif had always said was never going to happen to Affinity Photo. And Canva is very heavily steering in the direction of AI, which is something that a lot of, certainly the more purist photographers, and I would certainly count myself in this category, have steered away from. It's one of the things that we don't like Adobe for. Let's be blunt and let's pull the thing kicking and screaming into the sunlight. We do not want AI to be inflicted on us in any shape or form. Now, where Affinity have brushed with AI in Affinity 2 was the machine learning modules, which allowed us to use AI selections. And I think everybody would agree that that was a huge improvement. We're not talking about AI enhanced skies or, AI created little dragons appearing in our landscapes or anything like the stuff that we don't like about AI. Instead, it was used sensibly to create something that was actually helpful and useful for photographers. However, the fear and loathing about the possibilities of having a subscription model never really abated, and there were certainly, I have to say that I don't think Affinity particularly helped themselves by withdrawing Affinity 2 from sale a month ago and saying watch out for a new announcement that's going to totally change your approach forever. I think this caused more panic than was strictly necessary and may actually have backfired on them. So yes, great way to increase anticipation, but only if the deliverable was going to allay everybody's fears and put all the fears to bed and encourage us to believe that everything is hunky-dory. Now, the announcement was somewhat delayed. I, for one, was checking the Affinity site about every 5 minutes last Friday because it had been promised for the 30th of October and it appeared very late in the day. But when it appeared, there was fantastic good news, right? So the announcement was that Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher had all been merged into one app, and that that app was going to be free forever. Now, this is unequivocal. This is something we can really hold Canva's feet to the fire about. This has now been announced as an official announcement on public forums that Affinity is free. Okay, here we are in the new Affinity all-in-one program. This is effectively Affinity 3. So what do we got? We've got a really nice new interface. Now, I've noticed people complaining about the change from multicolour to monochrome icons. Personally, I think it's a huge improvement. I never was a fan of the icons in Affinity. It's a very small point. It has nothing to do with the functionality, but I think this interface is a whole lot smarter. The way that the program presents, other than that, is almost identical. You have different branding for Affinity, but other than that, it's almost identical. And I'll show you, for the sake of comparison, exactly what is happening here. So we've opened a different RAW file, but we're in the same place. So we're about to develop the RAW file. So this is the pre-preparation, if you like, before going into the pixel photo piece. But if you'd compare the icons here, there's the hand icon, little magnifying glass is almost identical, white balance tool almost identical. Let's just drag that up so we've got parity. The new icons are slightly bigger. The sticking plaster icon has been changed for the better, in my opinion. This is much more attractive. Red eye removal has been changed again, I think for the better. These icons are almost identical. This icon's slightly changed, and again, I think personally for the better. The addition here is that you've got your colours, background, foreground, colours for setting fill. Otherwise, we're in exactly the same place. You've got all the information. You've got your output here is set to pixel there. Here it is set to pixel there. All the same information. You've got access to, again, changed icons. Personally, these are, I think these are better. This icon has changed, the development assistant icon that is there, and this is now basically settings. It's the universally accepted settings ones. You've got these ones have simply been transferred into black and white. Clipped highlights, clipped shadows, clipped tones, all there, and you've got a help option here, which you didn't have quite so explicitly in Affinity 2. Okay, so let's look at the functionality. So first thing to note is, do we still have the same access? Well, we do. We've got panorama stitching, we've got a new stack if we want to make one. We've got HDR merge, focus merge, astrophotography stack. All of this is identical to the way it was before. Now this is a big relief, I think. Now the thing that a lot of people have remarked on, let me just quickly go over the things to the right. This is all identical. You've got the same controls, the same displays, the same panels are all there. This is basically your RAW, so we can change the distortion here. We're in lens correction there, so if we go back to basic, there's your exposure, You can alter the black point, alter the brightness, going into enhance, so you've got contrast, clarity, saturation, and vibrance. Okay, white balance, shadows and highlights and profiles, these are absolutely identical to the way it was in Affinity 2. Now, if we, let's give that a little bit more colour, and let's not mess around with it too much. That's fine for the purpose of demonstration. So if we hit the develop, we find ourselves in a different phase of the application. Now, replacing the personas that you had in Affinity Photo, we've got the concept of studios, and the studios operate at a much higher level. So you've got, I'll show you the whole list. You've got Vector Studio, Pixel Studio, which is the equivalent of Affinity Photo, Layout, Slice, Canva AI, retouching and color grading, typography and compositing studios, and you can create your own studio. So the idea of this is that a studio is a collection of tools, and it's there to simplify our lives. So if I want to, I can work on this picture and I can then embed it into a brochure or into a, into a course document or whatever, without leaving this environment. I can simply take it into a different layout. So if I go into layout here, there's my page one. Because I haven't defined a page one, it's simply going to use the picture. But I have all the tools here that I would have been used to before in the different Affinity application. I can come back to Pixel, work on the picture some more, and that will seamlessly show up in the other environment. So I'm actually going to use this to develop the photography course that I've been promising for too long. But I was working with Adobe InDesign before, and I'd seen no reason not to use layout instead here. So we've got the same layout, we've got layer effects, we've got filters, we've got adjustments. So all good. If we want to get at some of the stuff that I use a lot, I go Option, click on my mask layer, and I can look at the options here. And here is the luminosity range mask. Here is the hue range mask, and this is exactly the same as it was in Affinity 2. The other thing to probably demonstrate here, because this is a question that I've seen asked a lot, is do we still have the AI masks? So if I hit my object selection tool, these menus have been simplified and improved. So what happens when I click the object selection tool is I get a little sub menu here. There is my object selection tool. So click to select object at a point, drag to select object in a rectangle, hold, in the Mac case, the Option key to select various components and so on. So let's have a look at this. So we've selected the bush at the front. Okay, and there's the selection, marching ants around it. Could do with a tiny little bit of tidying up, but it's as good as it was before. Here we have, this is identical. Now the one thing that I will point out here that is different is if I go into the Affinity settings, the way this works is slightly different. So you've got one extra mode here. You didn't have the neural processing engine before. What I have found is that CPU and GPU give me the best performance. So in terms of recognizing things, individual stones, The performance is CPU and GPU gives me much better results, much more accurate results. Now this is learning, as of course, as I work, so it's going to improve over time. But just to put everyone's mind to rest, I don't have a professional subscription to Canva, nor will I ever have a professional subscription to Canva, simply because I'm not a content creator per se. I am a photographer, and I use these apps for photography primarily. I may make learning materials, but I'm not in the business of using Instagram and so on and so forth. The way that we should be looking at this is not, I think, Affinity is going to be swallowed up in Canva and whatnot and going to become just another part of Canva. Having looked at it in detail, I don't think that's the case. I think the changes that have been made to the user interface are a huge improvement. I have to admit, I always hated the Affinity icons. I thought they were, never mind. It was actually quite a factor in making me reluctant to use Affinity. I did not like the icons at all. And I think they've been hugely improved. We've got a nice shiny new interface. It's very Apple-like. It seems very functional. So there have been improvements made on that score. I think the thing that we all should remember is that we are not defined by the tools that we use. We should not be defined by the tools that we use. So people choosing to die on the hill of, Photoshop is better than Affinity or whatever, it's trivia. It's what you do. Where, as photographers, we are presenting pictures to the world at large, and our only responsibility is to make those pictures as good as we can. Now, I've always championed a philosophy of pre-visualization and visualizing what the photograph is going to look like after I've finished making it. And I've always had a philosophy of using the best tools for the job. So I'm not, I'm not, and I have never said that I will, use DxO Photolab 100% of the time, or Adobe Lightroom 100% of the time, or Affinity Photo 100% of the time. I use the best tool for the job always. And that's my judgment. People might disagree with me on the specifics of that and say that Affinity is better than, whatever. But it's counting the angels on the heads of pins as far as I'm concerned. I'm only interested in being able to create better photographs. And the software that can help me do that is the software that I'm going to use. So I think, when I read all of this hysteria on, on the internet, it baffles me somewhat because, we should not be defined by the software that we use. It's silly and ridiculous, and I think best tools for the job. And I'm happy to say, in conclusion here, I'm very happy to say that I have not changed my mind about Affinity Photo. I still recommend Affinity Photo, and in fact even more so at this point because it's free. And I will check in 6 months down the line, and let's have a look and see how it's doing then, but I don't see any reason now to change my mind. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. I hope this has been useful. And there'll be another video next week. If it has been useful, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be excellent for me. And give us a like down below, because it's the likes that drive the distribution of this video towards people that are interested in Affinity Photo in this case. So give us a like, and we'll see you next week with another video on a different topic to do with photography. Thanks a lot, guys. See you later. Bye now.